What's going on, everybody? We're going to be doing Unit 3 multiple choice questions for AP Human Geography. I have a practice test in the description down below that I am pulling these questions from. We're not doing all the questions in that practice test, but we're going to do some of my personal favorite ones out of that test. So here we go. Question number 1. Which concept is not included in the definition of culture? And something that College Board likes to do with these culture questions is they might ask you which of the following is an example of a cultural landscape, or which of the following is not included like in culture, or something like that. And culture deals with human stuff. It deals with human behavior, human interaction, human beliefs, human technology, human food, fashion, art, that sort of thing. And the answers to these questions that are typically not included with culture is anything that's not human, such as an environment, something that's grown on Earth, something that doesn't really have to exist with humans. Now, human environment interaction is a part of culture, but the environment just by itself is not a part of culture. So, for example, in Hawaii, the volcano itself is not part of culture. Any of the volcanoes there are not part of the culture, but the the interactions that the people have with the volcanoes, that's part of culture. But just the physical geographical features themselves are not part of culture. So technologies, governments, languages, architecture, even just aesthetic preferences, any type of value or priority of a group of people are going to be parts of culture. All right, number 2, Caucasian population in San Francisco is 45%, while Asian population is 34%. So we're seeing here that the Asian population, which doesn't include just Chinese people, but Chinese people are included, is 34%. So they're a minority culture. Which of the following best explains how Chinatown, which is shown in the image here, promotes Chinese culture here? So we see a lot of architecture, we see a lot of language, Mandarin language, we see Chinese culture in the businesses and the shops here, as well as just decorations on the streets. We see the lanterns as well. So we see a lot of elements of Chinese culture. So how does Chinatown promote the culture? Well, just judging by the image, we see a lot of material expression of the ideas. So let's go through all the answer choices and see which one best gives us the answer to this, because there's a lot of different ways that we could answer this question. Which one best answers it? So A, by promoting economic opportunities for minority group in America. So Chinatown doesn't provide opportunities for this minority group. They're creating the economic opportunities. They're creating the businesses, the shops, and all the other ways that they generate incomes in this area. It's not like San Francisco created Chinatown for Chinese people to move to. It's what's developed, because people like to live somewhere where there's similar people with similar values and cultures. That's how we form communities, and that's what's led to the creation of a lot of different ethnic enclaves in different cities, because people like to live in areas where there's similar people, because that creates centripetal forces that unify them together, because they have common ideas and common cultural traits here. So we're not going to see A as a good answer here. B, by displaying Asian minority traditions, we know it's a minority because of the question, and material culture, we can see that in the image, in a predominantly non-Asian area, which is San Francisco, which is predominantly non-Asian. If you go outside of Chinatown, the rest of San Francisco is predominantly non-Asian. So that's a pretty good answer. So we'll come back to that one. C, by demonstrating political allegiance towards Chinese people. So the cultural landscape, Chinatown itself, really has nothing to do with nationality. It really has nothing to do with politics or of any kind. So that C is just a nonsense answer here. D, by attracting tourists from outside the main city to visit and explore the area. So people outside of San Francisco coming in to Chinatown as tourists. Does that promote Chinese culture? That's not really the way that it's promoting Chinese culture. It would be promoting Chinese culture, of course, through the material aspects of the culture, but also through the businesses and the sales that they're providing here, maybe any of the traditions or celebrations that they're having, but they're not trying to just attract tourists. They're trying to just live their daily lives in San Francisco. And then E, by demonstrating and educating people on ethnic culture around the world. This is an ethnic culture, I would say, but this is not a culture that's found throughout the world. China is found in one place, and there are Chinese clusters in different areas of the world. And we're not looking at really any other ethnic cultures from across the world either. We're really only focusing on one. So E, it's worded well with the demonstrating and educating part, but we're not looking at ethnic culture around the world. We're looking at Chinese culture, which is, from China. So with that being said, B would probably be the best answer here for this question. All right, so number 3, which of the following regions of the world was the photograph taken in? It's a little blurry, but if you get the practice test, it's a little bit more clear here. So we can see here that this is a busy marketplace. There's a lot of different people wearing all kinds of different clothes. We see that there's a car, so it's very dense streets, probably not good for driving a lot of cars. We see that this is more of a trolley system that they have here with probably a bunch of people going in and out, and that's used popular for transportation. We see that they're selling food, they're selling clothes, probably a lot of other possessions as well. The buildings aren't very well maintained. They look a little old, or at least they were constructed pretty poorly. We can see that there's a mosque here, kind of in the center back. There's a mosque here showing Islamic significance. So what can we take away from this? So let's rule out Latin America, because that's predominantly Christian. Let's rule out Eastern Europe, because that's predominantly Christian. East Asia is predominantly Buddhist or atheist. So that leaves us with Western Asia or South Asia here. And I don't think this is West Asia, because that's going to be a little bit more developed than South Asia is going to be. The cities are a lot more developed. The buildings are a lot more taller. The buildings are a lot more well maintained. So this is probably going to be South Asia right here. Just based off of the, I'll elaborate on this a little bit more. This is probably South Asia based on also the color of the people's skins. You can see here in the image. You can also look at the clothing they're wearing. And Western Asia, where Islam is very, very popular, they're wearing a lot more traditional Islamic clothing because the governments in these countries are following Islamic law. In South Asia, where Hinduism and Islam are prominent, there's a lot more mix in the clothing they're wearing. There's a lot more popular culture influence here. And so I'm taking that away from the clothing particularly, is making this more South Asian than I would say the Middle East or Western Asia. Number 4, which of the following cannot be inferred based on the photographs? So there's a lot we can take away from a cultural landscape. We can learn a lot about a culture or a geography of a place, but there's also a lot we cannot take away because we don't have the full picture of a country or of a culture. We don't have this slice that's painted in this photograph at a certain time of the day, certain time of the year, with certain people in it, with certain political conditions, and so on. So let's go through each of these and see which one can we really not take away from this image here. So A, secondary and service jobs are common in this country. We often say tertiary jobs instead of service jobs. So we can see here there's a lot of different little market shops sprung up across this part of the city. We see there's food on the right, there's clothing, there's other like possessions. I can't really take away what they are in the bottom left here. But we could probably say that service jobs are pretty common in this country, and there's probably some manufacturing in other areas of the country as well. And we're looking at it in an urban area. If we're looking at a rural area, there are probably some agriculture jobs as well, some primary jobs. So we'll come back to this part, but I think there's a better answer here. B, global clothing has diffused to their country, resulting in a diverse amount of fashion styles and choices by consumers. So we can just look at the clothing here for sale. We can also look at the clothing the people are wearing. There's a lot of different blue shirts, but for the most part, it's pretty diverse, especially if we look at that shop here that's selling all the different clothes. There's a lot of different clothing styles that you can wear. And we can see that there's a mosque in the image here, but they're not wearing predominantly Muslim clothing, both the men and the women in this image here. So global clothing, yeah, it has diffused. It's part of popular culture. C, religion has an influence on the architecture and other material culture in this country. That's probably right because we can see the mosque here. It influences the architecture of the cultural landscape. D, fertility rates over 20 years ago were relatively high, resulting in a very dense population today. This is a densely populated area, and we see urbanization occurs in areas where high fertility rates are. Once fertility rates drop, urbanization shrinks. And this looks like a country that's been urbanizing. So they probably had previously relatively high fertility rates, and they probably are dropping as a country develops. That's the trend that we see here. So that's probably right. And then E, automobiles and other consumer durables are typically owned by a small percentage of consumers that are the wealthiest. And in countries like this that are not significantly developed, like a lot of countries, in Western Europe, the United States, and so on, we don't see a lot of consumer durables being owned and sold. Another good example of a consumer durable are those awesome refrigerators that we have with the little water and stuff. Just really developed refrigerators or other technologies. Televisions, I would say, are consumer durables now, or at least they used to be. Those are good modern examples. Cars, though, are the best example here. We see one car in this urban area. If everyone could afford cars, people probably would rather drive than walk in a city, or they're going to live somewhere that's not really densely populated to drive their car. We see this public transportation, so a lot of people probably rely on this public transportation. So a small percentage of consumers are owning automobiles or other consumable goods, and the wealthiest are the ones that are owning these automobiles and utilizing them. They rather use their own cars and take public transportation. So that's going to make E the correct answer here. Let's do number 5. Which of the following is not a centrifugal force? So that F here, that FFU, that's a bad word. So when we think of centrifugal forces, we're going to think of people breaking apart, people being divided here. So which of these is divisive? A. Or which one of these is not divisive, I should say? A. Common history of imperialism. I just dropped a pen. Common history is unifying. Even if it's something that can be seen as negative, it results in cultural transformations and diffusions that's pretty prominent across an area. So that's going to be a unifying trait. So that's going to make A the right answer here. But let's go through the other ones. B, religious diversity. That's diversity. It divides people. Multiculturalism, the coexistence of different cultures and they're maintaining their distinct cultural traits. That's divisive as well because they're going to be different. Same thing with D. That's multiple different official languages. That can make communication between different people hard because they speak different languages. And then E, that's a physical way to divide people, is with mountain ranges. So that A is the right answer here. Number 6, Constitution shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the exercise thereof. This is the First Amendment of the U.S. Constitution. So which of the following is true based on the statement? A, it's creating a centrifugal force for the country. Is it creating a method that can divide people? I would say yes, because freedom of religion allows people to practice any religion that they want, and that can divide people who have different religions because they have different values and different beliefs and different customs. So that's a very divisive thing that can happen within a country. So we'll come back to that one. That's a good answer. B, it's allowing free practice of religion in other foreign cultures and their practices across the country. Yes, it's allowing the free practice of religion, but nothing more. We're not looking at any other cultural traits. So B is incorrect. C, it's a push factor for many future migrators. Now that's going to be wrong. It's going to be more of a pull factor, pulling people into a country because people might be escaping political persecution for their religious beliefs, or people are just wanting to move somewhere they can practice their religion safely and freely. So that's going to be a pull factor over a push factor that pushes people away. If this was an amendment that restricted people from practicing a religion, such as Islam or Christianity, that would be a push factor. D, it can lead to others to relate to and inform others on their religion and with other people. This is just a nonsense answer made to confuse you. And because we're looking at people relating to and informing others on their religion with other people, there's, for one, a lot of ethnic religions. So that's kind of iffy there. And the other reason that this is incorrect is because it's not explicitly saying that. It's explicitly saying that you can practice your religion here. It doesn't talk about relating to your religion or informing others on religion. It's just allowing you to practice it. And yeah, we have universalizing religions like Christianity and Islam and Buddhism and Sikhism, but we also have ethnic religions like Hinduism and Judaism. So it's not going to lead to that in every single case. E is creating a centripetal force for the country. So that's kind of the opposite to A here, which is the right answer. E, centripetal force, unifies people. When you have a lot of people practicing different cultural traits, such as religions or languages, it's going to divide people because they're going to have differences between them. So that's going to make A the right answer here. Number 7, the map provided shows the popularity of rap music. What type of diffusion has rap undergone in the contemporary country? Contemporary just means modern. So we can see here that rap music is more popular in urban areas on the east and west coast. And so it's probably started in urban areas, in these really developed cities like Los Angeles and New York. And when it diffused from urban areas to more rural areas like the central United States here, that's going to be hierarchical diffusion because it's a top-down method of diffusion. Number 8, Coca-Cola is a product that originated in Atlanta, Georgia. That's a big city. I've actually been to the Coca-Cola headquarters in Atlanta. It's pretty cool. You can do, it's cool little tours and stuff around the area, and you can try a lot of different Coca-Cola drinks that are often not found in the United States but other countries. It's now a multinational company, so it's found in a lot of different countries around the world with all kinds of different beverages, and it's worth a lot of money. Their products can be found all over America and other countries. No matter where you go, they have sold products in over 180 countries. And so Coca-Cola, what you're taking away from this little paragraph is that it's prominent. And then the next part says the image below, this image of all the different drinks, shows various Coca-Cola products that are found throughout the world. Different flavors and brands can only be found in certain countries. If you ever are trying Coca-Cola beverages, never drink Beverly. Beverly is the absolute worst thing I've ever tried. Just a note for you. So the question, using the statement above and the image, of course, what type of diffusion has Coca-Cola gone through when it was first introduced today? So the first thing that I'm looking at is we have a lot of different drinks, and the drinks are in different languages. They have different formulas, different bottles. They're different, but they're also similar because they're part of the same company. So when we see that adaptation, that change with diffusion, that's stimulus diffusion here. So we're left with A, C, and D because those are the ones with stimulus diffusion. Now, Coca-Cola's origin, that's Atlanta, Georgia. That started in an urban area, and it's found in over 180 countries, a lot of countries that are a lot less developed than the United States is. So I'm thinking of urban to rural, or a prominent country like the United States to less prominent countries found across the world, like sub-Saharan African countries. So I'm thinking of top-down diffusion, which is hierarchical diffusion. So that's going to make A the right answer here. Number 9, which of the following is the largest result from the Berlin Conference? A, political unification through defined boundaries within Africa. Well, I wouldn't say that, because what the Europeans did during the Berlin Conference is they divided Africa as that they best saw fit for their resources and for their imperialist values. And what they did was they broke up a lot of different ethnic groups and nations, and they also put in a lot of different rivalry nations and ethnic groups together into one boundary. So they unified a lot of groups that were previously not unified, and they divided a lot of groups that were previously unified. So A is not a good answer here. B, the relocation diffusion of Judaism. We typically saw the relocation and expansion diffusion of Christianity, not Judaism, because Judaism is an ethnic religion and it diffuses predominantly through relocation diffusion. We didn't really see Judaism diffuse to Africa. C, creation of distinct and autonomous nation states. We don't see that because we see a lot of states that are multinational. As I was talking about for part A here, the states have a lot of different ethnic groups now because of the Europeans drawing the boundaries, disregarding the ethnic groups already present in this continent. D, the spread of Dutch linguistic traits. So this one here, spread of Dutch. Dutch is from the Netherlands, and the Netherlands was part of the scramble for Africa, and a lot of different countries within Europe have people that speak Dutch. So we see these Indo-European languages like Dutch, English, Spanish, and French diffused to countries that they colonized to, like in sub-Saharan Africa and Western Africa during the Berlin Conference here. So D is going to be the right answer here. And then E, blending of African and European folk and popular cultures. Folk and popular culture popular culture wasn't so big back then because we don't have the internet, we don't have airplanes, we don't have that advanced transportation and communication technologies here. So we saw the blending of European folk culture and African folk culture. That's what I would say would be a better answer here. Number 10, which of the following best explains why English is taught in schools in Africa and India? And so we're looking at historical causes of diffusion. And I told you that when you look at historical causes of diffusions, you should be thinking of colonialism, imperialism, and trade. And we're looking at India and Africa, places that Britain colonized. So we're thinking of colonialism here. So let's look at this. English has a high status globally as a lingua franca. This came about because of the imperialism. And this came about after it was taught in schools. This is a cause. The English being taught in schools, that's a cause for it to be a lingua franca, not the other way around. So A is incorrect. B, English is used to increase the knowledge of students. That's kind of a nonsense answer here. They're not teaching English to increase their IQs. C, neighboring countries are also teaching English in the school system. That's not a good answer either, because neighboring countries could have different cultures or also have very similar cultures. And they have similar cultures or similar colonial histories. And so, yeah, they may have similar colonial histories, and that's why they're teaching English, but a better answer then would be similar colonial histories. D, expectations in the education system for those countries makes teachers teach English and other languages here. We're not looking at other languages. We're just looking at English here. And yes, there's expectations, there's requirements in certain countries in Africa to teach English, but it's not English in other languages. It's just English. E, history of British imperialism diffused the English language and its prominence to these countries. We're thinking of colonialism, we're thinking of imperialism. It brought English from Britain. They did their interactions and they established their government centers and their schools and taught English and utilized English. So that's going to make E the right answer here. 11, the map shows current and potential Dunkin' Donuts locations. The number of these locations have increased in the past 20 years. So we're looking at contemporary diffusion. Using the map, which the following explains the role of communication technologies and the concept being demonstrated. So the diffusion of Dunkin' Donuts. We see that Dunkin' Donuts has globalized, like a lot of companies, like Coca-Cola or McDonald's or Apple. So let's look at the question here, the answer choices. So which explains the role of communication technology? So stuff like, your telephone, social media, that sort of thing. A, communication technologies have a high degree of impact. They're all high degrees, so we can ignore that part of impact on time-space convergence, such as facilitating the diffusion of concepts like Dunkin' Donuts to countries at a national scale. So that's what's throwing off this question here. They're right about time-space compression, making places feel closer and interconnected, and they're right about the spread of cultural ideas. But we're not looking at a national scale. If we look back at the map here, we're looking at so many different countries. We're looking at a global scale, not a national scale. So that's going to make A incorrect. Now B, communication technologies have a high degree of impact on time-space convergence. That's true because it makes diffusion time shorter. It leads to high rate of acculturation. That is true. They're adapting values of a specific culture, but they're also maintaining elements of their previous culture. So that's acculturation. And this makes ideas, technologies, and Dunkin' Donuts emerge with elements of a specific culture. That is not true. Because typically when we see acculturation and we see this global diffusion, we a lot of times see the adaptation of these traits to a certain culture. And if they're maintaining elements of their original culture, these new cultural traits or the diffused concepts or ideas are going to have elements of those original cultures. So there's going to be the presence of different cultures in these traits as they diffuse. That's what stimulus diffusion is. And that's typically what we see here. So B is going to be incorrect. C, communication technologies have a high degree of impact on globalization. That is true. Bringing in various goods from different cultures. That is also true. And promoting Dunkin' Donuts to various cultures. We are diffusing Dunkin' Donuts across the world. It is globalized and it's going to places with a lot of different cultures. So that is true. And that creates a global interdependence on culture and economics. And that is true as well. Because when we see globalization, we see this globalized culture. We see, the adoption to different areas. But for the most part, like Dunkin' Donuts is relatively the same across the world. They sell donuts, okay? And so when we see these globalized companies like Coca-Cola or Apple or Dunkin' Donuts, this leads to a global interdependence on economies. For example, if the economy does bad in the United States, it's going to affect the entire world. It's going to affect all the Dunkin' Donuts locations throughout the world. And we see that a lot with globalization of businesses. So C is the right answer here. Let's look at D. Communication technologies have a high degree of impact on globalization. True. Shown through Dunkin' Donuts. That's true. They promote their products in various languages to various cultures to gain equity, and technologies contribute to create cultural convergence. And that sounds like a whole lot of craziness. And it is. It's just a whole lot of nonsense here. So yeah, they're going to promote their products probably in various languages to appeal to the different people. And that, for one, doesn't really lead to globalization. That's not true at all. And they're not really gaining any kind of equity at all. They're just trying to attract business and gain customers and make money. That's the whole point of a business here. And it kind of does lead to cultural convergence because we see elements of popular culture interacting with these native cultures, and they're becoming similar with each other because of this interaction. So that part's kind of true, but the middle part's not really that good. E, communication technologies have had a degree of impact on the increased use of English. That is true as a lingua franca because multinational or multicultural communication is usually done in English. That is true. Such as Dunkin' Donuts' presence on social media and the internet, facilitating the global establishment of their stores. So what we see here is that when Dunkin' Donuts is found in America, they use English in America. But if it goes to Brazil, they're going to use Portuguese because they're going to want to appeal to the customers there. So that's not really good. But on social media, Dunkin' Donuts actually, in a lot of other companies, have social media accounts for different countries in those different languages. They're not always done in English. Over a lot of countries, they are done in English because I'm sure that they're predominantly found in English-speaking countries. But C is just a way better answer here because D and E, they sound good, but they're really just a whole lot of nonsense here. This is a very tricky question. 12. Music is an important piece of culture, which the following types of groups would most likely spread the album shown through contagious diffusion. So we're looking at popular culture here. Taylor Swift is part of popular culture. So which of the following is best attributed to popular culture? Popular culture is very big. It's not very small. So it's going to rule out B, D, and E. And we typically see it as a more heterogeneous cultural phenomenon, not a more homogenous culture. That's what folk culture is. It's a lot more homogenous because it's usually a lot more smaller in popularity and prominence. So that's going to make A the right answer here. 13. Which of the following explains the difference between the diffusion of Christianity and Judaism? So not even looking at the answer choices. We know that Christianity is a universalizing religion and Judaism is an ethnic religion. Universalizing religions spread a lot through expansion diffusion, while Judaism and other ethnic religions like Hinduism spread predominantly through relocation diffusion. So we're going to use that to answer these questions here. So A, Christianity is an ethnic religion. That's not true. B, Christian and Judaism are both universalizing religions. That's not true. C, Christianity is a universalizing religion. That is true. That foregrounds converts and diffusions, while Judaism is an ethnic religion and does not have a goal to convert other people. That is true. D, Judaism is a universalizing religion. E, Judaism is a universalizing religion. So that makes C the right answer here. We can answer those within like the first 5 words of each question, which is pretty good. A lot of these longer questions with a lot of longer answer choices can intimidate a lot of students, like the donuts one, but there's those key words in all the answer choices, and the donuts one is usually in the end or the middle of the question, but for this one, it's right in the beginning. The first 5 words of every question tells you which one is right or wrong. 14. Which of the following best describes the concept of a language family, such as the Niger-Congo language family shown in the map above? The map's pretty useless, actually. We're just looking at what's the definition of a language family. And so a language family is just a large group of families that share a common ancient origin. B could be a language group or a language branch. C is a language. D is it looks like a dialect. And E is a accent. So you just got to know those basic vocab words. 15. Which of the following correctly identifies a trait of diffusion to a world religion here? So Sikhism, that's a universalizing religion. It spreads primarily through expansion diffusion. B, Hinduism is a ethnic religion, so it spreads predominantly through relocation diffusion. So A and B are wrong. C, Buddhism is a universalizing religion, so it expands through expansion diffusion. And this spreads historically traders and political power. We didn't see a lot of Buddhism through hierarchical diffusion. We saw a lot of stimulus diffusion, a lot of contagious diffusion. We did see some traders, though, spread it through trade routes, but not really. So that's not a strong answer. D, historically through military conquests and diasporas. That is not true because typically Sikhism and Judaism are our ones with diaspora. Christianity, Buddhism, Islam, we didn't really see diaspora as a way of diffusion. And E, it's predominantly found in around its hearth. It's an ethnic religion, so that's going to make E the right answer here. 16. Which of the following countries has a lower probability developing cultural elements via multiculturalism? So which of the following is just the least multicultural? Which of the following is probably the most isolated or has the most homogenous culture? Maybe they're a nation state, and that's going to make E the correct answer. Japan's the only one on here. Actually, the UK is an island, but we know that in the United Kingdom there's the Irish, the Scottish, the Welsh, the English. There's a lot of different cultures and different ethnic groups and nations found in the UK. And the E is Japan's the other island here, and they're a predominantly isolated state for one. And they have really one culture there, the Japanese culture. And it's not a very multicultural country. Nigeria is in Africa, so we can think that there's probably a lot of different ethnic groups due to the Berlin Conference. B, Brazil was colonized, so there's a lot of different cultural traits there. Same thing with D, Canada was colonized as well. It's also a very developed country. Brazil's pretty developed as well. So there's a lot of pop culture there, a lot of communication technologies influencing culture, such as the internet and social media. Same thing with the UK as well. Japan, for the most part, though, has a relatively stable, homogenous culture, so it's less likely to be multicultural. 17. Taoism in China and Shinto in Japan are religious customs that derive from Buddhism and indigenous traditions. So there are just elements of Buddhism and indigenous traditions kind of blending together to make Taoism. And, Shinto. So these are two different religions that result from the blending of other cultural traits. So that's going to be syncretism, the blending of different cultural traits to make a new one. So yeah, C is the right answer here. 18. What is one way that Chinese immigrants moving into a Chinatown enclave within a metropolis can assimilate into their destination residence? And what this question is essentially asking is, which of the following is an example of assimilation? So A, Chinese immigrants can start businesses, entering economic networks. They're really going to be in economic networks no matter where they are, but that doesn't really talk about the culture too much, so that's not really a good one. B, immigrants can achieve citizenship and involve themselves with local politics. That's a great example of assimilation. assimilation here is achieving citizenship in another country and being involved in the local politics over politics of a different country. So B is a great answer here. C, Chinese immigrants can raise their children bilingual. That is more acculturation than assimilation because there are adopting elements of different cultures rather than just one. D, Chinese immigrants may spray elements of their culture. This is diffusion. That's not assimilation. E, Chinese immigrants may find communities that follow their religious affiliations. That's not assimilating. That is not really acculturation. That's just following your standard culture. It's not really any diffusion at all. So that's going to make B the correct answer here. Thank you so much for watching. Please like and subscribe. It really does help me out, and it costs $0. I have some free resources for you in the description down below if you'd like to use them. If you have any AP Human Geography related questions whatsoever, don't hesitate to leave a comment down below the video or send me a message on Discord. I'll see you guys in the next video, though. Adios.